God is found abundantly in those outside of our religious communities. That's probably one of the most intentionally provocative sentences I write in this year's Big Church Read Lent book chapter on interfaith engagement. My conviction in this statement comes from a deeply held belief that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and all of God's children are potential agents of God's grace and ministry of reconciliation. My name's Cameron, and for the past decade I've been involved in various community initiatives across the UK and around the world that bring together people of different faiths to foster lasting peace and dialogue across social and religious boundaries. In this work, I've seen firsthand how people from other faiths, through their inspiring actions, their wise words of encouragement and their spiritual disciplines, have deepened and enriched my own Christian faith, empowering me to become more sensitive to God's vision of the common life and more confident to participate within it. A key point I make in the chapter is that this work is for everyone. No matter who you are or where you find yourself, in our world of interconnected media, how you treat your neighbours, particularly those who are different to you, has a profound impact on the world that we all share. And God is calling us all to this work. The main barrier I've encountered when preparing individuals and communities to engage in this work is confidence. We can feel worried we might say the wrong thing and upset someone, or we might worry that our own beliefs might be undermined or questioned when we encounter strong, opposing views. The key takeaway I want people to have from this chapter is that you can do this work. We are all ambassadors for Christ. And you can do it in ways that overcome awkwardness by embracing clumsy language. And you can do it in ways that deepen and further your Christian faith through the eyes and sacred texts of another. You can be at any stage of your faith journey, a lifelong Christian or someone who's only recently started exploring the Christian faith and its teachings. I'd be really interested to know what you thought about the dialogue practice I talk about in the chapter called scriptural reasoning. Did it sound exciting? Did it sound intimidating? Are there people you already know that you could try this with? Would you be interested in meeting people of other faiths in this way? How could your current church community support this type of work? See, I begin and open the chapter with an example from my personal story that might seem very far away and detached from your experiences. But the point that I want to make is that the type of work that I've been involved with is only made possible by the patient and dedicated groundwork prepared by many, many others at all levels in their communities. It might seem idealistic, but it all starts with these small neighbourly conversations across difference and outside of our comfort zones, because together we are all constantly restitching the fabric of what is possible. So my wild, bright hope is that this chapter will inspire you to see yourself within that patchwork, that you will feel confident enough to reach out and build bridges with those from other faith communities at whatever scale, in whatever place. That you will feel the Spirit move you towards a sense of solidarity with other religious believers to further God's amazing vision of peace building, healing and justice for our common life. So I hope that you can all have a really fruitful discussion, making use of the reflection questions in the chapter and anything else that came to mind. I hope you have a good conversation.
Thank you so much for joining us on this Big Church Read. And thank you for reading this chapter, all about the wild paths of peace. Hope in peace can feel tricky at the moment, can't it? We can all bring to mind personal situations and headlines where it feels like peace is not just far off, but is actually getting further away. And this chapter is meant to acknowledge that. It's meant to acknowledge that sometimes we look out and all we can see is a wilderness of conflict stretching before us. It's tough. Most of the time we would rather not be there. But this also acknowledges that there are paths through that wilderness. Paths motivated by hope in a God who will ultimately bring peace. And paths that inspire hope that peace is possible now. It is incredibly difficult to walk into that wilderness and find those paths alone. And in this chapter, I talk about 3 guides for our way. faith, hope, and love. I remember a little while ago talking to a bishop in Mozambique, one of those responding to the insurgency that I talk about in this chapter. And he was telling me the latest and the violence and community response. And I said to him, how much do you want me to share with the UN? Trying to reassure that I would be careful with his information, understanding how sensitive the situation was and how easily he could be in danger. And he just said to me, Martha, there is no fear in love. Share whatever you want. I mean, wow. Love is never an excuse to be careless with information or to risk someone's life unnecessarily, but this was a hope that kept this man going through relentless challenge. In addition to this kind of love, we also need faith and hope. Faith that what God has done in the past, he will do again. We step out knowing that peace is possible, even if the paths are unclear. And we continue in hope, knowing that our future with God is secure in a way that changes how we live now. The wholeness of our restored relationship with God through Jesus, that we will know eternally when he returns, is this incredible combination of justice and truth, mercy and peace. And in our lives around us, where we feel those are out of kilter or where one is missing, we're drawn to act. And our everyday actions, they might seem on a completely different scale from the conflict that we long to change, but they matter more than we might expect. I know my perception on peace and reconciliation is so much down to someone that I was very close to growing up. And through some pretty lively everyday conversations, I learned that true peace is not sweeping things under the carpet. However, I might have pretended that was the case just to diffuse some tension. It was in those conversations that I saw how stronger, deeper, more trusting relationships can be on the other side of challenging, honest encounters, if you're both willing to offer each other mercy for the missteps. Through those earliest encounters, and in everyone that I've described in this chapter, I've seen time and again that the paths of peace are wild. They run through uncharted territory. A lot of the time we wish it was more simple. And yet they are part of the most phenomenal journey, where we experience things about God's character and love that we would never have done if we'd have stayed on the outside of the wilderness, or we'd have joined with the battles that rage within. This is not a Miss World kind of peace where everyone gets along and everyone lives happily ever after just because we will it. And yet, when people walk those paths, it is beautiful and hopeful to behold. If you're looking for a next step after reading this chapter, you might want to look at the Difference course, a course about everyday peacemaking centered around the habits of Jesus. And it's from that I draw a lot of language that's in this chapter. Thank you again for reading.